So the camera is in the computer.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Solid.
And if all goes as planned, you should be good. And
I don't know if I'm close enough. But...
Yeah, you try to be. It picks up pretty good though. I mess with the audio at the end. And Captain, that's it. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I once again, I can't stress to those that I've reached out to, and with very little and or zero apprehension, you're like, I'm going to come just on the dot.
I figured if you're ready to take a chance, why not?
And you said something really funny as soon as you walked in. You said, well, at least I know I won't lose any business.
Exactly.
So let me just start the chat with, for those that don't know, and I've said this to you a few times, and I'm not just trying to inflate your ego, not that you've got one, but you mean a lot to me, and I'll never forget. So I met you organically at Kokomo's years ago now. Imagine it's been like 5+ years ago.
Easily, yes.
Yes. You're there, and just that was such a good place. Not that there aren't other good places, but there was such a lot of my business kind of like started to come from just being there, having meetings there. They were loving and family, and then you're there, and I'm watching you. You would be there and hanging out. And you had like your own show, really. If you think of it, you had great people. I would always watch you from afar. He was always very nice to me, but I'd always watch you were just sitting down and hanging out, and I got to know you naturally. And one of the things of many that you've done that was always a big of interest to me, and something that I still hope to do, is you were sailing, and you would live on your vessel for X amount of times out of the year. And I knew of you to leave and of course we became friends socially online on Facebook, and I'm watching you and I'm like, this guy is doing what I hope to do one day, but trying to surround myself by those I want to be like. I wanted you to mentor me or like teach, like, what is this about? And you were, of course, you wouldn't let me pay you, and it was just an exchange of your time. And I can't thank you enough for that. But because of your education, and you actually came up in one of the last shows that I had, because of your education, I've recalibrated ever since then, because of not just, it was the good, and the ugly. It was like, and you were very informative, and I made the decision that it's just not time yet. But that was one of the biggest things that turned me on to you. And not to mention just like your spirit and your demeanor. And so right off the bat, I wanted to always say, like, that means the world to me because of that. Because I had a dude on here the other day. He's got a little sailboat, and he's planning on anchoring it in the intercoastal. I don't think it's even seaworthy yet. Like, I don't think he can go. But you came up right away. And of course, he didn't know you. But man, so that was my first of many experiences at Kokomo's and getting to know you. And then I got to know you. And then this beautiful book and the photography. And I would imagine most people that are going to be listening to this probably already do know you. You have a wonderful reputation.
Well, that's kind of surprising because it's not something that I built. It's just kind of come about.
It just happened naturally.
But talking about that, in terms of social media, I spend quite a bit of time around social media, and most people on social media, they know me by the hat.
Right.
Well, I'm going to take off the hat. Ordinarily, you just don't wear a hat indoors. I had, when I was in the military, I was in the Air Force, and I got a habit of when you come inside, you take off the hat, But I've noticed, sometimes going around town and whatnot, not going indoors somewhere, and I'll take off the hat, and people don't recognize me, and I say, "Well, that's cool."
Right.
That's cool. Then when I get ready to leave and to put the hat on, they say, "Oh, Dave, how are you doing?"
That's Captain.
So I figure, well, we start the podcast with some of the people that I know on social media with the hat, so they would recognize, that's who that is,
But you've got such a great, and once again, I'm using these words because they're just socially appropriate online because they're digital, but you got such a following. Like, even when in a good way, even when I went to the entrepreneur night and you were the first one I walked into, you were there. You got such a good, and it's like, once again, you're not doing it on the means of business. You're really not. Right. You're just a great.
Well, entrepreneur night is an interesting phenomenon also because it was good seeing you there, by the way. But
here, go like this a little. You'd be comfortable, but this will move for you.
Oh, okay. When I go to entrepreneur night, obviously the question that everyone asks, what do you do? And that is the one question that I don't have an answer for.
Right.
Because for the most part, particularly in an environment where you're talking to a number of entrepreneurs, I don't do anything.
Right.
So sometimes I really trip over that answer in terms of, well, what do you do? Well, what do I do? I don't.
Right.
I'm retired. I've been retired now for almost 15 years. It will be 15 years
Wow.
in January, and so I find a way to fill up every hour of the day, but it is not definitive.
Right.
There's nothing.
Go with the flow.
Right. Because I remember when I used to work,
Now, you were in aviation, if I
yes,
did my homework appropriately, and you've shared that with me too.
Right. Air traffic control. I was an air traffic controller for 38 years, and both military and civilian, and commercial pilot. I spent a lot of time around aviation most of my adult life. But when I was working, I used to look at the week in terms of not days, because I worked around the clock. I looked at it in terms of hours. There are 168 hours in every week. So a lot of times I found I had to budget those hours, because sometimes I was working from midnight until 8 in the morning.
Did you have a set schedule, or were you just kind of?
For a long period of time, the schedule was, I guess you can say it was set, but to the casual observer, they wouldn't understand what it was.
So it wasn't like a 9 to 5.
No.
Okay.
It was a thing of where one part of the week I would go in the afternoon, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and work until midnight.
Okay.
Do that for 2 days. The next 2 days, I would come in like at 8 o'clock in the morning and work until 4.
So it fluctuated.
Right. So that was for 4 days of the week, initially 4 to midnight, then 8 in the morning until 4. The last day of that week, I would come back that night at midnight and work from midnight until 8 in the morning. So It wasn't a schedule that, it was very easy to sketch out for someone,
right.
But it was a thing of where over a period of time, I got to understand. Everybody I worked with, obviously, we understood our schedule, but it was such a phenomenon that I kind of felt like I had to map out the week in terms of hours
for personal time in combination of the job.
Right.
Now, where was this too? This wasn't in Florida, right?
No, this was in Atlanta. Most of it was in Atlanta. I started out in air traffic control, obviously in the Air Force, and I went through Texas, Mississippi, Osan, Korea, and all of that.
Okay. How long was your service?
4 years.
Okay, so you did the 4.
Yeah,
and did you get to? Were you blessed with just walking right into your employment because of your background, or
basically.
Awesome.
And surprisingly, that was kind of by design. As a youngster, I kind of tripped across that design, but when I got out of high school, I started going to Queens College, and I wasn't taking very many hours, and so I was susceptible to the draft. They had the draft back then, and I got a draft notice. Boom, telegram right there. So I said, "Whoa,
Can you remember? Is it like super? Is it vivid? Can you like go back to that moment in time, or is it
aspects of it?
Yeah,
and that's not that vivid, but aspects of it, like the aspect of I dragged that telegram over to the Air Force recruiter, and I said, what does this look like to you? Can you do anything for me? And he looked at it and he said, no, they got you.
That's how it was back then.
Yeah, they got you. And I said, well, can you tell by that telegram, because I couldn't, which service will I go into? And I said, no. And he said, no. He said, no, it will either be the Army, the Navy, or the Marines. He says, I know it will not be the Air Force because we do not draft.
Okay.
And I said, all right. So I had to hang.
Were you? Yeah. How was it? This is so amazing. You're. It sounds really bad. I mean, I guess were you bummed? You know what I mean? Like, is it? You weren't like, yeah. This was. I mean, this was something that.
No.
You didn't have a choice.
This is not something.
This is not a good
I wanted
thing
to do. No, that was not. That was not part of my life plan.
Now, in your immediate crew too, like friends and families and those that are around your age, is this happening to a lot of people?
Yes.
But it is.
Yes, those who it could happen to. I grew up and was living in New York City at the time.
Okay.
And it was pretty rough area. So there were some of my friends who didn't qualify
Even
for the
draft.
military because of their criminal background,
Right.
that kind of a thing. But yeah, I was kind of bummed when I got that draft notice. But the Air Force recruiter, when he saw me walking out the door with this telegram in my hand, and I had this hangdog look, and he said, wait a minute, sit down and take this test. Let's see what's happening on this test. So, all right, I sat down and I thought it would be one of these 15-minute tests or whatever.
Right.
So 3 hours later, I get this doggone test. And so he does the, how they do the bubble graft or whatever on the test.
The scantrons, whatever.
Right. Well, this was way before, electronics. And he says, well, there are several career fields that we could use your gifts in. And I said, oh. And he says, yeah. He says, so I said, well, what about this? What can we do? He says, well, we had you on a delayed enlistment program. That's what we'll let the Selective Service know, that you were on our delayed enlistment program. We had you before that came. I said, perfect. I like that. I like that a lot. He said, the only catch is, this was on a Tuesday. He said, the only catch is that you have to leave for basic training on Sunday. Yes.
So you
That's
got
what I said.
Wow.
So, it was a thing where we went back and forth, and I told him that was not possible. And he says, all right, here's, he said, these people will give you 30 days. I said, all right, what do I have to do? Where do I have to go on Sunday?
Meaning it was not the Air Force, another branch.
Right.
Air Force wanted you in like T-minus 5 days.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And the rest of the folks, they would have given me 30 days.
And
so anyway, that's how
what
I
are you,
wound
like
up in the
18 fresh? Like, did you have to be 18? I'm really bad with
I don't know what the requirements were, but at that time I was 19.
19.
I was
Okay.
19 years old. I don't know what the bottom line requirements were.
So, man, you're right. So now you're making you're leaning towards doing it, because I would imagine it's kind of a known at that time that you would prefer to be in the Air Force than.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you go.
And it was a thing of where when he laid out the career fields, which air traffic control was one of them, I kind of felt like, well, that's something I can do when I get out of the military.
That's smart. Right.
And most likely these folks are not going to hand me a gun, so I might not get shot at.
Right. Yeah, you're thinking.
So
you come home, you had your family unit that you had to run this by with, or like anybody?
At that age, I was calling myself independent and carrying on. So yes, I did. Right. I did share the situation with my family and whatnot.
But it wasn't contingent on that. You knew you were going to go.
Right. Wow. Well, I knew I was going to go one way or the other. Either 30 days I was going to go with the draft board, or I was going to go with the Air Force.
And you couldn't. There wasn't. Once again, I'm so ignorant towards that because I just didn't grow up with it. And there was no choice. You were going.
Oh no. Canada was a choice. I could have gone to Canada. I had a friend who did.
Now, would that technically would have been illegal? Right, like if you had left the country, or you were,
yes, it
would have been illegal. But people were you were doing that.
Right.
Wow. Did you know people that were doing that?
I knew of one fellow who did. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so now you're making the decision to go, and like literally, did you leave that? That was it. Sunday, you left.
Sunday. Well, that's Sunday. Yes. With the basic training, and the whole, there was life changed
instantaneously.
Yeah.
And so you fast forward, and now you never had to, thank God you weren't getting shot at,
right,
so to speak. And you started working so you did your 4 years, and when you got out, Atlanta was home at that point?
No. New York was home.
You went back?
Yeah, I went back to New York, and I got hired. To work at Kennedy, at the control tower at Kennedy. Yeah,
good for you.
I got out in April, and I think I started working in June. And I didn't really apply. After I got out, I didn't apply during the month of April. So I applied sometime during May, and they hired me June 15th. Yeah.
And you're 24-ish, 5-ish.
Something like that. Yeah. I was probably 23, going on 24.
Working a career. You're in a career field.
Well, yes. At the time, I didn't realize that it was going to be a career. I'd gotten so familiar with air traffic control while I was in the Air Force that I kind of felt like, all right, I'll get out. I know this.
Right.
So I'll get out and I'll do this for 4 or 5 years while I look around and find something else to do. I thought I might want to be an airline pilot. And so I looked around. Well, actually, I just started working, and you fall into it.
Right.
An opportunity came up for me to transfer it to Atlanta.
Okay.
And which was a difficult process. But anyway, I did. I transferred to Atlanta, and
was it a step in a better, like a?
Oh yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, because in the at Kennedy, I was working strictly in the control tower.
Okay.
And in Atlanta, I was able to work both in the control tower and in the radar room, which we call the TRACON, which is a terminal radar approach control kind of a thing. So I liked that well-roundedness of what was happening in Atlanta. So yeah, it was a step up. It was a nice step up.
Was it a hard decision for you to make back then, or was it like kind of excluding the fact that you had a uproot? Did you have any other reservations,
or you
were like?
No, I was single. I didn't have any roots. The only root that I had was really and obviously my family and all, and my job. And other than that, it was a
no-brainer.
I moved to Atlanta. I had a 1972 Volkswagen Bug and my stereo in the back seat, and that was about all I had. I think I had $300 in my pocket. That was my whole world.
So now you get to Atlanta. Do you remember what area? The Atlanta area? Where are we? In Atlanta? What, like, I have friends in Buckhead, I think.
I was south of Buckhead. I was in I had moved to an area, College Park, which is not far from the airport. And at that time, my sister had graduated from college, and she moved to Atlanta. So she had a number of friends and whatnot in Atlanta. So so I kind of had a social inroad based on that. Based on my sister and her friends. And they lived in College Park, which was near the airport, so it was an easy commute for me.
Right.
And so I picked up an apartment there. And
so we speed track. How many years are we in Atlanta Airport? Is that
from 72 to 92?
So that was the chunk of the most of the meat and potatoes of your employment.
Right.
Wow.
And then after that, I got kind of promoted up to FAA headquarters. It was Washington headquarters job. Fortunately, I could still live in Atlanta and do the job because we had a branch office there in Atlanta, and we traveled all over the country. And
so that's where it gets interesting, is that my father worked for American Airlines for 20 some odd years, and it was amazing being in the airport scene. And it's such a fascinating monster of so many moving parts. You were employed. Were you employed by the airport? Is that how that? No.
It's employed by the federal government, by the Federal Aviation Administration.
That's who your employer is when you're working in the air traffic control and all the. Wow.
In the larger facilities like that, yes. Like a facility here in there's an airport here in Flagler Beach, and in the Flagler area, Flagler County, and it has a control tower, but it is a private tower. It's contracted. It's
okay. I always wondered what was going on there.
I think it's operated by the county.
Okay.
I've never really looked into it, but I think it's operated by the county, and they contract with the federal government to provide air traffic service for a facility that size.
And is that a common denominator? If you are in that field, you are employed by the government, not like Delta's not hiring the air traffic controllers up there.
No, they have positions that they call dispatches and some form of ramp control and things like that. But in terms of air traffic control that handle a number of different airlines, air carriers, and general aviation and different fleets, that's mostly nationwide is handled by the federal government.
That's incredible. I never knew this. Is why I love this. This is what now. Is it, everyone's like a small world when you're working in that field. Like me, I'm in the web space. So like, I know everyone that does it, but of course it's a small area here. Is it like that in your field as you grew? Is it a revolving door, so to speak? Or are these people like with you, they were in it for two decades?
And it depends upon the facilities. And the facility that I was in, but both facilities, New York and Atlanta, people came and they stayed.
That was it. I mean, it's such a. I would
you know, for
imagine the
most part.
employment's got to be excluding the maybe some of the grueling hours and obviously the tedious nature of whatever. I mean, you guys are controlling the air. You're not dealing with it sounds like it's a great gig. I mean, it speaks for itself for you to do it as long as you did and then to move up. And so at what point did you make that transition from starting to work for the company based out of, well, the government, but the company out of Washington? When did that happen in your employment? Was it like?
That was like in 92,
okay.
1992. And I started traveling with that job. I started traveling around and evaluating the various air traffic control facilities around the country.
Wow.
And that was a wow. That was an eye opener because you had an opportunity to see how all of the pieces fit together in terms of commerce,
right,
you know, in the country. So that, you know, that was a wow. And one of the big benefits, I met Jill while I was doing that.
Your
job.
wife.
Right.
Yep.
She was working for the FAA also in the Chicago area.
Okay.
And we met on I went in to do an evaluation of the O'Hare air traffic control facility, you know, both radar and the control tower. And she was sent by the local region there to help the team. So that's when we initially met. Yeah.
Just brought in together.
Right. And well, she was really, really, really interested in the work that we did from a national level, from the headquarters level. So eventually she applied for a job with our national team and got it.
She got it.
Yeah. So for a number of years, we wound up working together.
How long did you guys court, so to speak? Or was it?
I really couldn't say. Probably a couple of years in the office.
She stayed based in Charlotte? Was that?
No. She was in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. I'm sorry.
Chicago. And no, she transferred when she got the job with headquarters. She transferred to my office in Atlanta, right? And so I guess it was probably almost 2 years before we kind of realized we were serious.
I never knew that. I didn't know that's how you guys met. Was the same endeavor, basically.
Yeah.
So now you're working at that level, and that was how you ended your career ended at that position, like as being kind of a quality check kind of
quality assurance, as a matter of fact. Quality assurance, quality control, that kind of a thing. Yeah. And I had the opportunity to bid on several other positions in other facilities.
Okay.
But I had gotten this wanderlust, of if I have to go to that same facility every day, and drive the same road home and back, I'd go crazy.
Right.
And I felt like, well, I have the best job that there is. Every other week I'm going to some other part of the country and meeting new people, seeing new things, seeing new facilities, how they operate, and helping them make progress in terms of putting together their operation.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume because you're working in the airline facilities, you're bypassing the majority of the riffraff of the security.
At that time, yes. After 9/11,
everybody went to just common ground.
It changed,
But for a blip, I mean, I would imagine you were probably flying maybe better of class than normal, or just because.
I was flying in the cockpit. I had credentials where we would just fly in, we would fly in the jump seat in the cockpit. And
but I always found it so fascinating. You're going to see me check on this time to time, make sure we're still going.
Yeah.
But I've always found it so fascinating when I would see my dad. I'd get to go to work with him in Orlando, and I felt like I was, I'm talking to kicks. My dad used to work at Daytona Beach Airport. That was his first employment when American Airlines was there. And he would let me go to work with him once in a while. And then when that turned into Orlando, but everything from the employee parking lot, and of course, we're just talking about at that level, it still was awesome to see the behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
And getting through security and the badges and that stuff. I almost took that route just because I loved aeronautics, and to begin with, I just love the planes and the
that whole environment, a lot of dynamic energy.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on.
But everyone's really, lack of better words, it's no bullshit. It's a lot of good. I mean, everything from the captains to the the flight attendants and all that. Like I always found it. Everyone looks good. Everyone feels. You know what I mean? It's go time, and I always found that so fascinating. And this is what's going to be interesting now. Is like so. You obviously at one point when you became, I guess you would consider it civilian when you've lost. Did you ever, when you lost the credential, did you lose, like when you retired, did you had to go back to just flying? Like your first time flying, you had to just be a passenger.
Buy a ticket.
Was it miserable? Right. Was it like, so not miserable, but like, what was it like such a paradigm shift of like,
well,
I'm in the security line here?
Not really. Not so much different than the average individual who flies, for a living. His business gives him an expense account or whatever, and he flies and then he retires. Same thing happened with me. Whenever I was flying for work, yes, quite naturally, the government paid for it. Now, when I fly, I have to pay for it, but I saw that coming. I knew that. And aside from that, is now I really prefer not to fly.
Really?
Yeah,
this is interesting.
Mainly because of all of this. If I could bypass the terminal, if I could afford to fly private jets, just and bypass that whole terminal thing, then it would be fine. But for the most part, if I have the opportunity to drive, like we have a reunion every October.
Okay.
And no matter where that is, I generally drive.
Don't want to deal with it.
If it's within 6 hours, it's a no-brainer. I will drive as opposed to fly.
Because it negates its time, the security to this.
Yeah, and the last reunion, when we had the reunion earlier this month, last month, we were in Philadelphia. So Jill and I drove from here to Philadelphia. We took our time.
Yeah.
I think.
Now you're saying reunions, meaning just family gathering?
Actually, it's a reunion of friends.
Okay. Oh, even nice.
These are friends that I went from elementary school, like from the 3rd grade on up through high school with.
You guys do this every year?
Every year.
Good for you guys.
Right after I retired in 2005, a friend of ours had passed away, and most of us had not seen each other, in 30, 40 years.
Right.
And we all kind of converged on the funeral. It's like the big chill.
Right.
So we were all there at the funeral, and we said, the next time we get together can't be a sad occasion.
Right.
So that following October, the kind of like the anniversary of Kenny's passing, we met in Charleston, South Carolina, and we decided during that meeting is we'll do this every year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and we started out, I believe there were 9 of us to start with, and this last reunion we had 40. 30,
so it's 39, picking up.
39, right.
I'm learning from you. I think I'm gonna start. I'm guilty as charged. We got a good crew that I remember, and I've been since kids, and I'm at that point though where we're losing it. You know what I mean? Like we're not doing it, and it takes the effort to go and
get together.
To get together, and it's tough. It's weird. I always joke with some people about my peers and stuff. I'm like, you learn a lot in school, and it's the scholastic stuff. But I wish someone would have taken me aside and said, "Look, you'll start to experience death, divorce, the mundane stuff, like by your 20s and 30s, like it happens. Like and of course it's probably just my own being a child and naive and not knowing it was going to happen. I'm sure if maybe someone was pragmatic and maybe read a little bit more, knew that was life. But I'll never forget going through my friend's first divorces and my first friend's death, and like it's like life starts to happen. Not just the bills and not just the that, but like life. And it was so fascinating. And I think that's awesome that you guys are like now the destination, is it just chosen at like kind of whatever most amicable for everybody? Like we're gonna, for
the most part, we have a small committee that kind of does that right now. So we kind of go along with what they come up with. But we've been to a number of interesting cities. We've been to New Orleans. We've been to Philadelphia this past year, and Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C. We went back to the scene of the crime, back to New York. That's
where it all started.
Yeah, we had a reunion there one year. Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, Atlanta, so we've been to a number of different cities.
Now, when you're doing this, is this like a long week, like a Wednesday to Sunday, like a long weekend?
Basically, it's like
nice.
Generally runs like from Thursday through, and we leave.
Whoever can stay,
on Sunday.
Someone's got to leave early.
Right.
I love it. I feel like I must be doing something right, because how you feel is how I'm beginning to feel with this traveling. And I don't, as I'm quote unquote, whatever people define success, and I don't necessarily define it as financial success. I think it's like the peace and the health and all that. But one of the things I'm shooting for is private travel. No joke. So like if I do have to go somewhere, yuppity yup meetings and these things, and you get that one guy who's like, not that they do that at the entrepreneur night, but what do you do, and it turns into like, how is your fourth quarter and stuff like that. They're like, how do you define success? My definition of success now, it's the shorter my shorts get, is me I'm doing something right. And 2, private travel, because I want to. But of course, I'm nowhere. I did just for giggles the other day, Cap. No joke. I was telling my wife, let's see what it would take to get a plane out of Flagler. Like a private charter. It's not as crazy. Yes, it's crazy, but it's not as crazy as you would think.
Well, particularly if you have, say, if there's 6 of you or 8 of you traveling, and you're splitting the cost.
Yeah.
It after a while, I don't know if I want to use the term reasonable, but it's doable.
Doable. And that's what I was trying to explain. So I eat with my grandparents still every Friday. And you've come up in discussions a lot throughout that, because when you were mentoring me, and that's what I consider it as, when I was doing that, when I was pursuing the sailing thing, I was learning a lot from you, not just like the sailing aspect, but your peace and your centeredness and what I find to be like great characteristic traits. And one of the things I've been trying to shoot for is I've told my grandparents that it's my goal as I gain success, whatever it may be. If I have a couple bucks, I want to spend it on my family and enjoy the toys or whatever it may be. I looked into it. It was, you get a play. It was really online. I was actually even curious to see what their web interfaces look like. Like, is there people really pushing this? And there is. And there's a company. There was only like 2 that were doing it. One was really, lack of better words, just like really shitty web presence. Like the site looked really old. And I'm like, oh well. Then one looked like really legit, and not just the aesthetics, but the functionality. And it was as easy as the day and time to a T that you want the plane, the type of plane, and the exact cost. Of course, the receipt's quite extensive.
Yes.
All the fees and this.
And
but I did one just for giggles to Jamaica. And I want to say it came out to like 27,000-ish.
Round trip.
But once again, it fit, I think, up almost close to 10 people. And I forget the exact plane because I'm not that familiar with planes, but it was a nice make. It was a jet too. It wasn't a prop. And I thought, once again, the math came out to be like 5-ish.
Yeah.
And of course, yes, it's still an obscene amount of money to go to Jamaica for a week.
Well, Jill has a nephew who's a pilot for Net. I think it's called NetJets now. They keep, names keeps changing over a period of time, but it's a business jet company, and part of their profile is, say, if you had the financial wherewithal, you did not want to buy a plane,
right,
but you wanted to have one available to yourself. You could invest in some form to, I think they call it fractional ownership or whatever.
Okay.
You can,
like a timeshare almost, maybe.
Basically.
For a plane.
And it's a thing of where, all right, now that you're a member of this NetJet organization, you want to leave. You want to go somewhere. You pick up the telephone or whatever, their app on their phones, and say, I need a jet at Flagler County Airport in 4 hours.
Right.
Ordinarily, they can get it there to you.
That's amazing.
That's how a lot of, the celebrities or whatever you see, that's how they travel. It's not a thing where they own a jet with their name on the side and all that good stuff. It's a thing of where they have this fractional ownership. And when it's time for them to leave, they can generally, within 3 or 4 hours, they can have transportation at the closest airport.
I bet you I've heard about that, not that exact business, but that business model. And I know it's got to be picking up, because I knew of a guy that was starting to work for a company like that. This was a handful of years ago. And he was one of those kind of motivational speaker dudes. I know, and it was pretty well, not in this area, but like well known in that community. And I was watching him grow. He's from here. I think he graduated from FPC, and he was working on that. But it's really fascinating, because once you start to actually crunch the numbers, unless it's just so disposable income where you are just park the jet. I get it.
Yeah.
But it really does make sense. So like I said, so I'm planning a trip the end of the month, actually. And this first time that I've traveled in a while, because the hurricane really messed my wife and I up. Not necessarily like financially or anything, but just in our, like, we didn't want to leave because we still have it's just my wife and I, and we have 2 dogs that we care. Like, we're like weird dog people. So we couldn't just like kennel them. And we didn't want to have someone watching them and then they had to evacuate, you know, and so we didn't leave, and I'm going stir crazy. Now my trips I don't need to go super. I'm a big fan of the Caribbeans, and I used to tell, that's why my goal was to sail there and to get some kind of method where I don't have to pay and wait in the lines. But this, I get to fly to Jacksonville. I'm really excited. I don't think I've ever flown out of Jacksonville that actually left the state. I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm excited to do that, but I still dread it. I can't stand it. I'm with you that it's rather fascinating that here you are, this background in aviation for as many decades, and you steer away from it. But
it's a thing of where that's almost like work now,
right? Yeah,
like that kind of thing. But quite naturally, we took a trip to Europe over the summer, and obviously I wasn't going to.
Did you go to Italy? There. Where did you go?
We went to France. We went to Paris.
Okay, I saw the photos. They're beautiful.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I have fun. I always have fun with my.
Yes,
phone,
you do.
But.
So you had to fly there, obviously.
Yeah, we had to fly there, and we had taken a trip first part of the year to Southeast Asia. And obviously, I wasn't going to be able to drive there. Yeah.
Wow.
And
so if you're going over the pond, I see you on an airplane.
Right. It's a thing.
But you're not going. You're not
going to California. If I have to go out there on a short trip, I'll do that. Next year, we would like to go to Albuquerque to the Balloon Fest.
Okay, like hot air balloons.
The hot air balloon fest, and we're looking at driving. We might make a good 35 day trip out of it or something.
Yeah, just go and take. You got no rush. I did it. I drove to Cali and back over the span of like a year. I was in no rush. I was living out of my car and just having a 20-nothing-year-old experience. It was awesome. But it's far, but it's once you're there. I mean, like I said, I'm with you though. Once you start adding up that, like you said, flying to New York, you're going to MCO, you got to be there 2 hours, 3 hours early. You're pissed. I'm pissed. The traffic, I-4 is horrible. Like I told my wife, I specifically plan on going if we don't fly over the weekend, which is usually not as cheap as it would be on a Monday or Tuesday. Those are some of the, that's some of the rhythm you can. I said, I'm doing it only on the weekends now. And if we do have to leave during the week, I'm that guy that leaves like the middle of the night and I'll get a hotel the night before, especially at the MCO, the Hyatt right in there.
Particularly if it's an early morning flight.
It's not worth it.
Right.
I do it all the time. And I learned that from my dad because my dad, we would always fly. We love those red-eye flights just because it's just even less ruckus. Like those 5, 6 o'clock in the morning flights, you get very little dealing with people and the traffic or just the ruckus. And I love it. You sleep at the airport, you wake up. But yeah, it's just, would you say, like, do you have a preferred airline? If you could fly, or is that really?
No, not really.
No,
not really.
You're not like a credit card holder of one of these guys.
Well, because I lived in Atlanta for so long, obviously I had the Delta card. Delta Sky Miles and stuff because Delta did everything.
Right.
They were the big dog on the block, but now they all have their pros and cons.
Right.
They all have their pros and cons. I've been noticing the crews sometimes they get to be a little bit. What's the best word that I could use?
You're talking about the people working on it?
Yeah, like the flight attendants.
Yeah.
Sometimes the cockpit crews they get a little cynical. They've been doing the job for so long. They see the same, even though it might not be the exact same passenger, but they see that exact same personality come and sit in that exact same seat day in and day out. And they get a little cynical about the job. And I find that sad, a little bit off-putting, because I always kind of felt like from the first job that I've ever had, attitude is everything. The attitude that I have while I'm around you is going to affect you eventually. You know, and when I get on an airplane and the attitude of the crew, you know, and I'm kind of boxed into this doggone tube, aluminum tube, with these folks that got this bad attitude, I'm thinking, you know, this is gonna rub off on me. You know,
it does.
So, yeah,
that's a powerful. You're right. It's because it really. I mean, I've got an MO on most airplanes, even if it's 2 hour or if it's anything longer. I'm the dude wearing the eye mask. Even though I don't really sleep that much on them, but just eye mask it because so many people are so. That's probably actually one of the worst experiences of just seeing. That's got to be one of the highest, like the frequency of seeing so many people mean to other people, excluding a busy subway system. You know, and I'm not used to that, and I can't. The minute you're in the security line, the ticket line, whatever it is, people become so barbaric. Isn't it weird? And it's something to do just about. I mean, of course, there's probably other areas, but you know, whether you're going, you go to a concert or any other large gathering of people, it can be bothersome anyways, just because you got people rubbing all on you. But at least there's something euphoric.
Yeah.
But,
well, you know, a lot of times it has to do with the destination also. You know,
I guess
if you're
you're
going
right.
to if you're going to a vacation destination, some of the passengers on board have this light, airy kind of a demeanor and whatnot, and it kind of rubs off a little bit on the crew. If you go in someplace with a bunch of business people,
right,
and everything is stodgy to begin with,
right,
you know, it's the flight experience is a whole lot different, you know, from a personal standpoint. We went over to we flew to Paris out of Charlotte.
Okay. Did you drive to Charlotte or did you just
actually no, we flew to Charlotte from Orlando.
Okay.
And either Orlando or Jacksonville, I can't remember now. But you know, we flew up to Charlotte and then flew over into Paris. And
nonstop from Charlotte?
Nonstop from Charlotte.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
what airline?
That was American.
Oh wow.
American
Okay.
Airline. And the crew was they were quite senior. You know, there's some of them seem to be almost my age, you know, and I've been retired for 15 years,
right.
You know. But I noticed with that senior crew was a lot of that cynicism that I was talking about. You know, it's a thing of where, you know,
just sit down.
I got to serve you guys this meal, but, you know, I'm not really here to do this. I'm here for your safety kind of a thing.
Right.
But, you know, you don't know that. So, you know, I was reading in between the lines of all of that and just kind of realized if I have the opportunity, I prefer to drive. You know,
yeah, I don't blame you, especially if it's like you said, if it's not too far. I mean, once you start to add up, I'm a 3 hour guy too at the airport. I'm like the one I'd rather be early than rushing. I'm a rushing guy, and I can't stand. I mean, majority of the people that I know they're like leaving at 8. We leave the house at 7 or something. I'm like, you crazy? Like I could never. I just never been that mindset. Anyways, I'd rather be at the terminal and kill 30 minutes an hour on YouTube than freaking out then, on I-4.
Since security has gotten to be so rigid in a lot of these, you know, a lot of these facilities, the busy facilities, and whatnot, it's crazy to get there.
Too much of a gamble, and I bet you that's probably has a lot to do with it. That's some of the aspect of why people are just like, rawr, because they're late, they missed their flight, their connector flight, etc. But I know it's fascinating. You know, it's really interesting. I just watched. I'm on my 3rd documentary, not back to back, probably over the span of the last few months on the Concorde. What an amazing! I mean, wow. You know, not only the what was going on behind the scenes with the governments and everyone bidding and how the whole thing went down, but and then obviously the actual science behind the actual aircraft, and then the service to the aircraft, how they were the ticket costs, etc. And I remember I shot my mom one of them the other day because she used to my grandfather used to own a travel agency, which was one of the first few ones that were selling tickets on the Concorde, and my mom got to fly on it. And it wasn't. Nice. It was one of their. Watching the documentary, I knew what it was about. She didn't remember. She didn't say specifically why she flew on it, but now I know the Concorde started doing sales approaches to bringing the travel agents on and doing flights like to New York and back and within like 30 minutes or something just to get the experience. And my mom was one of those that got to go on it. But I didn't realize had you ever been on it?
No. And one of the drawbacks of the Concorde, which is a supersonic transport kind of a thing, it's difficult to fly it over land because of the sonic boom. They can fly it over the ocean, which won't disturb very many people. But once they try to, I think they had and I don't want to quote it because I don't remember exactly now, but they had I think they had one flight that was going into Texas or someplace over land, and I don't think that was working out very well.
It wasn't. You're 100% correct. And because it's fresh in my memory, the airline industry is so fascinating, way past my pay grade. I don't understand it much, but I do know enough to where it's all about, obviously, revenue driven, but big, they need to clear such high revenues that those routes need to be, they're not doing anything just to get you there politely. They really want to get these great routes that are going to pack the plane, high yielding dollar amounts. And they were losing when they were going through it was fascinating to see these guys at that level that are still, some of them are alive today. And they were saying like, they would strap up to go sell a Concorde, and they went to, I believe it was Japan, to go sell. And that was already, they had agreed verbally that, we're going to take 2 or 3. And at that time, that was a lot for an airline to even commit to. So they went there under the pretense of this particular airline. It was a domestic one to that country, and I'm not familiar with it, to go show them the plane. And that they wanted to see it. And they have footage of this guy, probably, I don't know what his level was, but however that government works, and he was this position, etc. And they went and they brought the plane. And not only did they have an issue with the noise, but the pollution content. It was a very visible carbon monoxide, that black smoke, visibly. And the guy right then and there, upon being displayed this at an airport, was like, tell him no. And you just hearing from the inside, like, you imagine you go there, you think you're selling 3 and they had to go back to basics and try to clean up. But the noise thing, they had a big issue with over India. That one I know for a fact. They had a route that was going over India, and the boom was taking place in or around that area. And the governments at in India said, nope, we're not dealing with it. Because at that point, there was still a lot of indigenous tribes and cultures, whatever it may be at that point. And they says, no, we're not dealing with this.
Yeah. Well, just like, even in anywhere in the world, structures can't stand that on a regular basis. You put a sonic boom up over your house every day, and eventually you'll look outside and you'll see some of the cracks in the block and the concrete blocks, that kind of a thing.
I know when we get our choppers flying by, I love it, but it's still, it literally shakes the house, and that's just a chopper, let alone a boom. But what a fascinating thing. I'm sure, I don't know the exact dollar amounts, but that was supposed to cater to the top of the top. And it was, the ticket pricings, the experience, the food, this, but of course it wasn't. And then that's one that had crashed. They end up losing one, unfortunately. And they actually knew why it did it. It was just because of just poor, they just weren't doing their job. The piece of metal came up, hit the fuselage, and that's what caused the thing. But that's all it took. And especially back then, fuel was skyrocketing. I think it was the 70s, late 70s. Is when the big crash hit.
I remember when that happened, but I don't remember the time. And it was I thought it was after the.
Back then, things today, big deal. So someone picks up an iPhone. It was on camera, and it's very scary to see. And of course, it was just sad. But so the end of the show, or the documentary, they're talking about guys like Elon Musk and those that are private entities are talking about bringing it back. Of course, this is, if that would be catering to just a handful of people, like 4 or 5 businessmen. It's a supersonic plane, breaks the atmosphere, and then you're somewhere within. I forget the math, but it was.
Well, if it's going outside of the Earth's atmosphere, I can see it going coast to coast. But if it's going to be within the Earth's atmosphere, I don't see how they would be,
because of the noise, right? Yeah, it's so fascinating to me, that whole traveling that way. What do you think's next for our because Elon, about Elon Musk's tunnels that he has,
hyperlink or whatever.
It sounds like he's really about. It's launch. I watched the the podcast that he had, and what an amazing guy. But he really has these tunnels, and they're supposed to be launching soon. and it's fascinating because you're like, well, I guess it does.
I don't know
make
an awful
sense.
lot about those, but from what I understand, he wants to put one in New York City,
Right.
and which would be a real interesting dig to me. I guess so. To bore this tunnel in New York. There are so many of them there already. I don't know how another one would fit into that network of all of that stuff that they have going on, particularly underneath Manhattan. But
I don't think I grew up in it was like flying cars with it. I don't think that's going to happen in my lifetime because it's just not practical.
Well, from an air traffic control standpoint, I don't see how that's going to happen.
We're having an issue just with the drone thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even carrying people. I know we see on the internet people making these things now that can fly you here and there, but I mean, real transportation of a human being and/or beings in a flying apparatus. I don't even know how it's just not practical. Not
unless you live, unless you live very remote.
Right.
If you're very remote, some places in Alaska or whatever, that might work out. But I don't know. But there are a lot smarter minds than mine that are working on these kind of things.
They're trying.
I'm still trying to catch up with the self-driving cars.
Have you been in one?
No, but when I bought that Outback, I realized the technology is there because there's so much to that, where that has lane keeping. It'll keep. I don't turn it on because I don't like it ping-ponging me back and forth between the lines. But it does have lane keeping. It'll keep me in the lane in case I get distracted. It has what they call adaptive speed control, of where the cruise control will keep up with the speed of the vehicle ahead of me.
Get out of here.
If that vehicle slows down, I slow down. It maintains.
So you don't got to sit on that
thingy. It maintains a certain interval. Whatever interval that I set to stay behind that vehicle, it will maintain that. And
what year is this? It's doing.
Well, it's 2018.
Oh, so that's
been around for a while. It's been around for quite some time.
The technology's there, and this isn't even a self-driving car.
And that's not even self-driving, but I can see where they're going with it. Whereas it wouldn't take that much to make that self-driving. Between the lane keeping and the adaptive.
Would you ever go self-driver?
With my present frame of mind, no. But I didn't see the Dick Tracy Risk Radio coming about either.
No, look at it.
Yeah,
it's
right.
happening.
So I don't know.
My mom got a car too that's not too old. I mean, as long as you got a car now within the last couple of years, it has most of these bells and whistles. And on long trips, I'm a minimalist, so I don't have much. I don't have to commute, so I don't have a nice car. And we had to go to, I go to a soccer tournament twice a year, one in Sarasota and one in St. Pete. And it's just far enough to where I go, I'll rent a car. It's not expensive. So I rented a car. And this time I was lucky just because it was a brand new car. It was like 2017 or something. And I'm not used to driving in anything new. And I was like, oh my God, it had all this stuff you were talking about. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I turned it all off. It was too much for me. This is beeping at me and this is shaking. Yeah. And I thought, how counterintuitive is this stuff? Like, is this helping? I'm sure there's statistics that are starting to be aggregated, but is this helping?
It's interesting, because before I made this, decided to make this this change in cars, I always kind of famously drove around my struggle buggy.
You had that buggy.
Yeah, that struggle buggy. It was a 25-year-old Jeep, and I just loved that vehicle.
She did good to you, though.
Oh yeah, and it was minimalist, for what it was, but it does. It was 25 years old when I finally sold it.
And you sold it. Keyword. I said keyword. You sold it.
And the fellow who bought it, he was really, really happy to have it.
It's going to last forever as long as you
that's why I was happy to sell it to him, because he knew what he was getting. But while I was driving the struggle buggy, I was like you. If I was taking a long trip, I'd rent a car. I would rent one. And the last time that I rented a car, we went to one of these reunions that we were talking about, and I rented a Ford Fusion, which had everything on it.
All the bells and whistles.
And after a while, I kind of realized it's not like driving a car. It's like operating a computer.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, you know, I don't know how many various computers or computer components that they had in this thing, but it was more like operating a computer than actually.
Did you like it though? I mean, are you getting a comfort zone with it? Or you still keep most of the jazz off?
Yeah, I keep most of it off.
I don't like it.
I keep most of it off. On long trips, on long trips with select traffic, it works out real well.
Like you're on a road for the next 48 miles.
Right.
And you got the thingy on and all that.
And if the traffic is all reasonable and fairly light.
Right.
I found that with the adaptive speed control, which sounds good, but you have a lot of people who are in a hurry.
I know.
And with you maintaining a steady speed does not match what's going on in the rest of the environment. So
yeah, I'm not right now. Until further notice, I don't need all those. Not yet. I don't. Maybe like you said, if my commute was some, you know, I'm going to Gainesville and on those back roads, and I'm like set it and forget it, and it's going to do some lane whatever. Or you're driving in the middle of the night a lot. You have that midnight shifts, and it just helps make sure you don't ever. But you know, that brings up a funny, interesting point too. Are you good on time? I'm chilling. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
Hey,
you know,
listen,
I'm
this
retired.
is I posted this the other day. Just always make sure this up. I posted this the other day, and this is what's really fascinating. It's called the Right to Fix movement. Have you heard of that?
Yes. Matter of fact, I think I may have saw it might have been your post that I saw.
I share it because I know there's going to be a select few people that are going to enjoy it. It doesn't really affect us too much. I mean, as consumers of these things, you and I both know. I think I'm like you. I would rather time comes first. Then I don't mind spending. Like for instance, I'm not going to spend 10 hours trying to fix this thing personally. Maybe I'll pay someone to do it, and then even then, if it comes up, then that's why you just unfortunately buy a new one. That's the business model, and it just works. But I was watching this documentary on the Right to Fix, and we're talking about John Deere equipment, the big stuff. You know, you buy some of these tractor trailers now, and they're, you know, who knows, like $700,000 to $1 million, and you got 4 of them. And it's not like it was years ago where you could fix the alternator and tweak this or pay Bob down the street to. Now it's all proprietary information, and they have in their schematic that it's all electronic. Now, I've never been in one of those tractor trailers. I just was watching the show, and it was amazing to see. It looks like a space station, you know, and it's all these gizmos and gadgets. They're all like GPS now, and they don't even require a driver. But once they break, these poor farmers they can't fix it.
Yeah.
So there's a movement now. There's this guy, there's a few powers that be, and most of them are farmers, because we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, that they're like, no. I'm not going to go buy your new CPU for, you know, let's just say 10 grand and then pay you 30 grand to put it in. I'm fixing this. And there are these geeks, and unfortunately, they're being considered hackers that can break the system, diagnose it, and say, no, here, man, all you need is, because they can't even diagnose these poor machines, because just to diagnose them is in the thousands of dollars to be told that. So they've got these guys. There's a big movement going on. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I think
I saw one of the videos, I think, that you put up that had to do with, I think it had to do with the iPhone. No, actually, I think it had to do with an Apple computer.
Apple computer.
And, you know, for the most part, the thing that Apple wanted to charge over $1,000 for was just a pin.
That's it.
A twisted pin, you know, which the regular technician, he didn't even charge to correct that.
Nope.
You know, but I saw that coming on a different scale back in the 70s.
Did you really?
In 1978, I bought my first wife, we bought a Volkswagen Scirocco. And I can't remember what the issue was, but after it was a couple of years old, there was something that I wanted to repair on it. And I said, well, I can fix that myself. And I don't even remember what it was. But I could not get the casing off in the engine compartment. I couldn't get it off. So I go to the Volkswagen dealer and I said, well, you know, I have not seen this kind of screw before. Can I buy the tool that will loosen this tool? He says, yeah, you can. He says, but it costs $1,800.
Yeah. And this is back in the 70s?
This was in the car was a 1978 vehicle.
Okay.
And, we kept it maybe about 3 years. So it was someplace between 1978 and 81. And, $1,800 for this tool. So it was obvious to me that in order for me to get that fixed, they wanted me to bring it to the dealer. It had to come to the dealer to be repaired. And we started seeing that, they needed the right to fix movement back then. But it's snowballed now.
It really, and it's funny because on that same principle of a screw, that's one of the things that they bring up. Apple invented its own screw, which makes, I don't really share that I fix them too much, but it happens, as you can imagine. People, hey, you fix this. So I have a computer kit with screws in this. And it is fascinating that they really did. They have their own system,
their own head, their old screw head. So you have to have a different kind of driver, right?
That guy that I shared, his name is passing me right now, but the dude, I've been watching his channel for years now, and he's such an advocate. And he's not even he has his own little repair shop. But when he got big because he was showing you how to fix it. Just like, and that's like you had to ask today, what's the goal of this thing? I'm doing this. So this is what we'd be doing this at Kokomo's. Now I'm just sharing it with the world. And that's why I started doing is I want to put content out that may be useful and resourceful to somebody. And that's what this dude was doing, had his computer getting fixed. And it was just the video showing how to fix that and how to fix this. And of course, the silver lining to the whole thing was him, and not even animated about it, just kind of disgruntled towards the fact that Apple's just one of the bigger jerks in the market, that it's yeah, man, it's really this easy. But instead they don't want you. It's like they don't want you to fix it though, which is weird. I even try telling people hardware stuff, you're going to get yoked. Now, me personally, I try to work if I can install RAM or fix this or that, you're talking $50 to $100, keep it simple, because the minute you start spending more money, you can just buy a new computer.
Buy a new one.
It's like if you just dig on the internet, you get a Chromebook for $200 now.
Yeah, and that's basically what Apple wants. They want you to turn in your old one so they can recondition it and resell it or whatever. Probably take it someplace in other countries or whatever.
Right.
But
it's interesting.
I had to get a new phone, and they were really on top of me for the old one. Oh, what are you going to do with the old one? What do you we'll give you money for
at the actual store itself.
In the store,
the Apple store, or was it a cell phone store?
No, it was the Apple store.
See, I haven't had an experience because I've been lucky enough to where I'm getting less and less with my mobile, and I'm investing more in the watch. But of course, when I went to get the watch, it required, and they weren't very good about educating you about this either. And it's still not even really that known. So if you're getting a watch, you need at least an iPhone 6 minimum, the actual phone itself, or this will not work without the phone. Now you can have any phone you want, and the watch will work with the phone. But I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to be without the phone. So I hadn't gotten a new phone in forever. I had an iPhone 4, and I was happy. I don't really do much on my phone. Well, I had to get this. Oh, I made a message. It was really nice. So, how many people have phones laying around now? So a really good friend of mine, she was like, I have one. Do you just want it? I said, absolutely. But I haven't had much interaction with them bringing this back. I could see them probably being like, hey,
well, it's the thing where it wasn't high pressure. It wasn't high pressure sales, but it was a thing where they made sure several times while I was there, they made sure that I knew that the option was available, that I could trade that in.
Did you just keep it?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, I have my last two. I have my last two iPhones. I don't even know why I have the previous one, but I generally use them. Yeah, well, I generally use them as it's funny. I have a camera museum, but that's another song. But I use my old iPhone as an iPod. More or less for music and stuff like that. Or if I'm using this one for navigation.
So what are you rocking now? What's this one? Is that the new guy?
That's the 10S.
Are you happy with it? You're the only one I know with the 10S. So far, yeah, I'm getting used to it. No home button. You gotta.
That's the biggest. That was the biggest hurdle to get over, was getting used to having no home button.
What's up with you like the Face ID thing?
No,
I don't like it.
It's designed so all you have to do is lift the phone,
right,
and the Face ID would notice you. I don't like that. I don't like my phone continuously looking at me. That's creepy to me.
It is creepy.
I also realize that there's very, very little that I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember there was an interview on TV several years ago of the FBI director, and he was saying that he puts a piece of tape over the camera on his computer,
Right,
because he has no idea who may be looking.
it's true.
And if this is the guy who is the director of the FBI, I know I have no idea who's looking at
You're
me
100%
through my
correct.
phone,
It's funny because I've been doing that with, I don't have one on mine, but I got a phone call by my mom the other day. She was with a girlfriend of hers. And I get a lot of these calls, not just from my family, but friends and stuff. And if they get a crazy email or anything techie, just because they're like, oh, you're an interneter, so you do everything. But my mom calls me and tells me that there's this, and this isn't even a new scam, but it's, I guess maybe it was new for her. And she's an older woman, and she got one of these emails. Have you ever got one of these that says like, we've been watching you, we have all this dirt on you, basically? Have you ever seen this one yet? It's hilarious. They have all this dirt on you, and they've been watching you on your camera. And of course, if you don't like, transfer $1 bazillion. And of course, they're using Bitcoin and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Then we're going to like release it and all that. And the poor lady was not freaking out, but my mom was freaking out. So I don't know if that was a justification that she was, but my mom thought. I'm like, Mom, first of all, tell her don't have anything to worry about, you know. And second of all, change your password to your email. You know, like we just do some precautions now. I'm sure you know this, but do you change your passwords to your stuff pretty frequently?
Not as frequent as is recommended.
Start doing it. That's one thing that it's a pain in the rear end that I give you. Cause like you'd go to log into your bank and you're like, oh, and you gotta like, cause I've been changing mine so frequently that I don't even remember them. Cause they're nothing. Cause you can't change them to something that's even similar anymore. But that's one thing I try to hold all my friends and family accountable. And then if clients even ask, but like, and try to do it a lot. That's one thing. Cause that's the only thing that, if somebody wants to hack, and then like I said, you're of intelligent, you get it. Like if someone's going to do it, they're going to do it.
They're going to do it anyway.
So there's really nothing, even this stupid echo thing that I have here, this thing turns on half the time and says like, I don't understand what you said. And we're like in the back room watching a movie. And I'm like, what the heck? And there are reports now that those things are they're picking up everything.
Yeah.
Just because it's not talking to you doesn't mean it's not recording.
It's the same thing with the iPhone.
100%.
They have that Hey Siri option,
right,
which I always turn off on all of my phones. But I noticed, I don't know, a couple of months ago with my other phone, it was sitting on my desk. I'm working on a computer, and I said something to Jill in the other room, and I don't even know what it was.
At an amplified voice, so right.
And I noticed the screen light up. It didn't give me any response, but the screen lit up, and I looked at it, and it said, I didn't understand what you said. And I'm thinking, I don't like this. I really don't like this. But I also recognize, just like we were talking about what my attitude is about the Face ID. If I'm going to continue to use the technology, there's very little I can do about it.
Exactly.
So we got this 1984 syndrome going on right now. So
well, at least you're not fighting it. I think we actually maybe talked about that one of the last times I did see. It's like you get a lot of these people now that are just like fighting it, and you see, every so often we see this stupid whatever it is that's going viral on Facebook for that moment, the fake account that went viral. And then you get, post this to remember that one that went around. If you don't post it on your page, this is all my property. No, it ain't. It's not your property. It's never going to be your property. You can use it. I try to, even now with this new show, I save all of the videos to a second place. I'm putting them to YouTube, but I know when I wake up tomorrow morning and YouTube's gone. That's it.
Right.
I'm not going to make a phone call. Where's my video? It's theirs. And that's what it's not too much in my immediate nucleus group of people, because most of them are techie and get it anyways. But there are a lot of people that really think like, this is my Facebook. This is my photos. This is and they want to call Facebook because they don't understand. Like, I'm like, do you have their goal? Have you noticed too lately, Captain, that, and I'm seeing it more and more and more. Because I maintain a ton of Facebook pages, not just for myself, but clients and this and ideas. And the alerts we get now, even on the actual feed, when I scroll, if I don't make a post for my business page within like 48 hours, I don't know what the algorithm is yet, but it's like a ticking time bomb where it's like, hey, you haven't done something.
Oh, I have a couple of side pages.
Right.
Even the page that I used to have for the boat.
Shaboomy.
Yeah, and I stopped. Obviously stopped when I sold the boat. I stopped posting to that page. Well, Facebook does not like that. They're always prodding me. You have so many followers who have not heard from you for so long. So, and I also it was kind of like a joke kind of a thing that I was doing with a friend of mine who lives out on the west coast of Florida. I forgot how it all started. I think he took a picture of somebody, and I said, "Well, you should start a fight. You should start a site like Humans of New York, and just Humans of the Sunshine State." And he said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that." And all. So anyway, just out of
just to do it,
just to do it, I did. I started Humans of the Sunshine State, and I think I put one picture up or whatever. Oh, Facebook is having a fit. This was over a year or so ago, more. And they having a fit. Why are you not posting? That kind of a thing.
Well, they want your money too. Have you ever boosted you never needed to boost anything. That's a whole nother world. So I got involved in boosting, which unfortunately it sucks. You have to. Anybody that preaches against it, which I don't think there is, but unfortunately, if you are going to maintain a healthy Facebook face for a business, it's a business page, you have to. It's literally like they will make sure you don't get seen. So unfortunately, now I don't go crazy with it. I mean, I may spend $50 to $100 over the span of a week or two if it's time sensitive or a promo or for a client's page. But once you start doing that, then they start really salivating at the mouth to get you, because I was maintaining and operating a Facebook page for a client that was in the THC-ish, realm-ish, CBD-ish, world-ish. And because of that, my account got banned, right? Which I didn't care, because I didn't, whatever. I'm like, you want to ban my account? I'm not going to give you any money. And the only thing that was annoying, though, is that Facebook account that got banned was also maintaining a bunch of other ones that I didn't know that. So, but I actually I always run everything off my wife. She's like my colleague. So I was like, babe, I don't care. It must be a sign. I'm not going to boost anymore. I'm just going to do additional guerrilla marketing and just get it out there better. I'm not going to spend, because you don't really ever see anything except for clicks and stuff anyways, which is a whole nother, what really are you getting? You see a couple more clicks and you see a couple more, you don't get really like human engagement. It's just likes. So I stopped. Well, I get phone calls now. I get phone
really
from the Facebook, not those like, hi, I'm with Google, and they're spammy and they're fake. They're not with Google. This is legit Facebook cronies calling, and like they're legit too. They're not even spammy. They're picking up. They sound like me. They're like, hey man, we're calling on behalf of Facebook. We with Business Ads Manager. We noticed that you and I'm like, well, it's funny you're calling me. Like, I'll entertain it because this is interesting anyways, but you banned my account. That's why I stopped paying. Oh, well, you must have, what was it? And then I show them the account and they're like, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. Because of course it shouldn't have happened. It was literally a CBD product and it should not have happened. It's nothing illegal. And I wouldn't even do that anyways on my own account. Long story short though, Cap, get that phone call. Now I have fun with them, because they're not spammy. They're just actually trying to get it done. I says, look, if you guys wouldn't have, I just can't believe that they're really calling from Facebook, but it's insane.
Well,
they want,
I get a little bit annoyed with that because I have this telephone obviously for my convenience, not for anyone else's. And I had this insurance when I had the boat. I had CETO insurance.
Okay.
If I had any problems or whatnot, they would come, that could help with either bring it diesel or tow or whatever. Well, when I sold the boat, I called them and I said, well, I want to cancel the insurance. Well, you can't cancel the insurance. You have to wait for it to run out. I said, all right, so I'm not going to get, I thought I would get maybe a retroactive refund or whatever. Right. So I made peace with that. I realized, all right. So the insurance ran out in mid-September.
Okay. This year?
This year. I started getting these telephone calls, do you want to renew your CETO insurance? I said, no.
I don't
and I told your colleague who called yesterday that I don't want to do it. And as recently as last Friday, I got
still getting these calls.
Right.
Who's this company?
CETO.
They're literally
It's
that's called sea
It's
tow,
called sea tow, right?
and they're just
there's two nationally. There are two of them, sea tow and Towboat US.
okay.
And I just happened to go with sea tow when I first bought the boat, and but
So it's like AAA for a vessel.
basically, yes.
Okay.
Basically, yes.
What's something like that cost? What is it? Is that?
It was like $100 when I started with it. It was like for my boat, it was like $100, $99 a month.
Okay.
And
did it pays for itself though? At least probably like at least once a year, even if you get towed because of the convenience.
You know, basically it pays for itself if you only use it once. Like I've only used it once in the whole 16 years that I had the boat.
But they bring it to a dry dock or something or wherever.
Well, basically, yeah. Well, what the situation that I had was we were down in Daytona Beach, anchoring in Daytona Beach.
Okay.
And came to a rigid stop. What in
Not
the world?
A good sign.
You know, yeah. And now that I run aground here in this anchorage, you know, there's nothing on the charts about it. So I tried everything to get the boat off of whatever it was on, and even got in the dinghy and tried to kedge off, you know, with the halyards and all of that good stuff, and it wouldn't go anywhere. So finally, I said, all right, well, I called sea tow. So the sea tow captain, he shows up and he pulls up alongside and he laughs. He says, "Oh, I see you found our sunken houseboat."
Ooh.
That's what I'm thinking. You know, if you know it's there, why is it not on the charts, or at least some kind of marker on this doggone thing? You know,
what's something like that take to get out? Like, so did someone have to go?
He did. He had a pretty powerful engine on his, you know, on his boat. So we were able to run a halyard from the top of my mast to his boat, and he went out and he pulled me over. You know, we heeled to such an extent of where my keel came off of that. Whatever the superstructure was on the boat.
You weren't worried about the keel. I mean, can a keel snap, or is it the likelihood is
not on Shibumi? It couldn't.
Because it was
some boats that would be a pretty tender area. But Shibumi was a
good,
solid vessel. Yeah, very solid vessel.
What is a keel made out of? Is that like
that
thick?
Well, fiberglass, and the ballast in it was concrete. Concrete ballast inside of it. So I was concerned about if I did some damage to it, you know, and I had employed a diver call.
They go down there.
Yeah, he would periodically come to the house, and he would he would clean the hull of the boat, you know, to keep the barnacles and everything from growing on it. So right after that incident, I'd asked Carl, I said, "Would you come take a look, see what I did to the bottom?" He says, "Nothing."
She was good.
He says, "Yeah." He says, "Not a scratch."
Was that your first time running aground? I guess it wasn't ground, but
no, it wasn't the first time running aground, but it was the first time that I had to call sea tow to get out of it. You know,
they were there within somewhat of a timely manner, like not.
Yeah, it was pretty timely after I called. I don't remember. It was like maybe 20 minutes, a half hour, something like that. Yeah.
So really, it's worth. But some of these
particularly where I was located, I was in Daytona Beach, so you know they probably had several vessels.
You were
not too far from there. Yeah.
Is it international? If you were to be, I mean, I guess considering the governing body, but I mean, what if you were X amount of miles offshore here, they still would come, or is there like a limit?
There X amount of miles, yeah, and I don't know what it is, but
if you're in the ICW and all this other stuff, they're going to come to you.
But offshore, probably I'd have to deal with the Coast Guard. And
did you ever have anything like that before? Did you have to make a call to the Coast Guard?
No.
Anything scary?
No.
All right.
The only time I would call the Coast Guard is, like in some circumstances in Miami, they have an inlet that they would close if they have a number of cruise ships in that inlet.
Oh, okay.
And you can't see when you enter the inlet if the cruise ships are actually there. So I'd have to call the Coast Guard for, information about that.
Right.
But I hate to call the Coast Guard. You don't want to really call the Coast Guard because, you call them and you say, well, U.S. Coast Guard, this is a sailing vessel Shibumi. Now everybody's listening. Oh, Shibumi's in trouble.
Right.
Because most of the time when when you hear a vessel calling,
it's a distress call.
Yeah, it's a distress call when they're calling. So I always used to try and shy away from even having a dialogue with them, but that was the ego thing,
Are you because I know Shibumi was beginning of the year, wasn't it? Because we had some dialogue.
Yeah,
I saw you at Ace Hardware.
Right.
Remember you were telling me like I got to buy. The first one fell through. I think you had like one potential guy that fell through, and then it was very shortly after.
Well, when that first guy fell through, the eventual buyers, they were already interested, but they were in Texas at the time, and they were working at the time, and they didn't have an opportunity to come see the boat. In the meantime, this guy slipped in, and he saw it, and he was interested, and then he got cold feet after a while. He thought it was a little bit too much boat for him.
But it wasn't that far afterwards.
No,
I mean, it was
that was the first of the year. I forgot now. I think we closed on that boat on the middle of January.
Yeah, I was going to say it didn't take long. Well, I mean, it speaks for itself. She was beautiful, gorgeous. I want her so bad. That was my dream.
It was part of you. You talk about your pets and all that. That was part of our family.
Well, you took good care. You had her. Well, you've had her since I known you, so it's been 5+ years.
We bought it before we retired. Actually, we bought Shibumi in 2002.
Wow, so that's when I graduated high school.
Yeah, we bought it in 2002. We retired in 2004, but we had that period of time to kind of get used to her. And
I remember you saying it's like it was bittersweet though, but it's always onto the it was a good. You said it's a very intimate exchange because the people that are buying it wasn't just like get it away from me. It was like, this is my baby.
Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, to me it was important who bought the boat,
right?
Because the last 3 years that we've had the boat, we really did not keep up with the boat the way we had been prior.
Right.
My father had passed away, Jill's son had passed away, and we didn't have. Not to use a pun, but I guess it is a legitimate pun. It kind of took the wind out of our sails,
right?
And so we weren't doing little things like keeping up on varnishing the teak,
right?
I was doing
things that used to be enjoyment,
right?
Were becoming
I was doing all of the seaworthy stuff, but I was not really doing a lot of the cosmetic,
right?
All of the cosmetic stuff, and I kind of felt like.
She deserves better
time. It's kind of time. Our energy level is a little bit different than it had been. And when these people came along, I could tell that they were very, very, very much into that boat.
Now, are they living on it or doing kind of like?
They will right now. They're working on it.
Amazing.
They took it up to Norfolk, and the woman had a brother up there in Norfolk that was very familiar with nautical. And I think
so what do you mean work? I mean, she was in great shape, just like adding bells and whistles.
Oh yeah, well, like I said, we had not done any work on the on the teak. The teak requires kind of like varnishing periodically, at least every other year, every 2 years or something like that. And we hadn't done that, and forgot what else they were going to add to it. They did do a paint job. They painted. To me, I didn't think the boat needed a paint job. It just, I would wax it every 2 years,
right?
And it hull came
same
out
color, just
but
fresh?
They painted it the same color. And from the pictures that I've seen online,
oh yeah, I was going to say, are they like keeping you in the loop?
No, actually they're not. But they are posting to they are posting to a site that I follow, and so every now and then I get an opportunity to kind of peek in,
She's still looking good, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, still looks like Shibumi. They changed the name.
Oh really?
They did.
Is that a sin in the world of sailing and boats? I thought you're not supposed to change them.
Well, it's supposedly bad luck unless you go through the formal ceremony.
What is that?
There's a long ceremony of where you first of all you have to give some sacrifices to the gods of the sea. Zeus and.
So just pour the bottle for.
Yeah, and so we did it when we changed the name. When we bought the boat, we went through 2 bottles of champagne, and but we did the name changing ceremony right there at the dock in Fort Pierce, Florida.
Do you have to smash it too?
No, we didn't. We took the cork out and
Gave it to
some for the guards, some for our glass, that kind of a thing. And the people who were in the marina and the slips around us and whatnot, they thought these people are crazy, But
hey,
we went through the name changing ceremony, in the entire 16 years that we've had the boat. The nautical guards were happy with us, So
you did share. You said it was she was good to you.
Oh yes,
really good.
Yes.
What was her name before Shibumi?
Aurora.
That's pretty too. That's a princess name in Disney, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what the connotation that the previous owner had of it, but it was Aurora, which I liked the name. But I had this Shibumi thing
that's
in the back
yeah.
of my ear,
I remember you shared with me what Shibumi meant. Isn't it something like it was something really nice?
It was our connotation is eloquent silence.
Ooh,
it's a Japanese word, and it has a lot of different meanings, but the one that we picked up on was eloquent silence, because that's what we were always shooting for, is when we can get into conditions of where we can raise the sails and shut down the engine, and and just.
Have you ever? Did you ever bring her as far as Aruba and all those, or is that too? Can you say
Aruba down in the ABC Islands?
Yeah,
we hadn't gone that far south. No,
I'm gonna go check it out next week. I've never been. I'm excited. I thought I was really close to gonna be trying to spend majority of my year out in Jamaica. I was really in love with all that area and those islands, and then I went to Bimini. I thought Bimini was gonna be and then I'm still hunting.
What are you looking for?
That's a good question. Marine life. Not to sound tacky, but like a good marine life and clarity of water and community. And with the hurricanes, all of the Caribbean area I was like, why am I going to leave here to go deal with and be in the same path? From what I understand, I'm just learning because I've never been. From what I'm understanding, Aruba is below. Right. It could still happen, but the likelihood is slim. And I don't really get too concerned into like the safety aspect. I think that's more of a state-based mentality. Like, oh, this isn't safe and that's not safe. Nowhere is safe if you go to that spot. I've never had any issues in all the islands I've been to. And that's been in how
a lot of times it's frame of mind.
It's frame to me. And when I go there, I always go as a guest. I don't go there trying to change anyone. And I've never had an issue. That's why I was really close. I really wanted to move to Jamaica. I really did. Not full time, but have you see my little house. I wanted something out there small. And then when I would,
Oh, so you would travel, commute back and forth.
Easy peasy. Well, of course, my dream is when I'm able to afford it, because I can't tinker. I'm getting better, but I wouldn't be able to live on a vessel. That would be my dream, is to have a sailboat and go down there and then just anchor up, and then I wouldn't need anything. But as of right now, I would love to have something where I could, rent out this, because now ever since the hurricane, there's nothing really here it's like perfect for an Airbnb, this house. There's not I don't have tons of stuff where I'm like, oh no, it's still in boxes because we just never unpacked. But I'm going to go check it out. So those are the three things that I want: marine life, the clarity of the water, and somewhat cost effective. Like Bimini was out of control. Bimini doesn't even count. I was talking to a gentleman today and he was like, what was it like? And I said, dude, it's literally a rich man's playground. You don't go there to live.
Well, what about have you ever been to the Exumas?
Yes.
The Exuma chain?
Yes. Love it. I loved it. But
there are several small, one of my favorite areas there in the Exumas is Black Point. Now, the only way that you can really get there is by boat, or you charter an airplane to go in or whatever. But I think there may be 300 people who live in Black Point. One of the charming things that I thought about it was nothing comes there unless it comes by boat. And so twice a week, but once a week, the mailboat Captain C comes south and comes to the dock. That first trip down is when he's bringing things in, so everything shuts down. The schools are out, the business is closed.
When the mailman comes?
When the mailboat comes. Everybody goes to the dock to get their delivery from Captain C,
Right.
whatever. He was delivering stuff like motorbikes,
whatever,
and, everything. Everything comes by Captain C. And I really, really liked that kind of environment, because that was an area where just about everybody in the area, in the development, they kind of got together. It was like an occasion.
Yeah. I've never been there. That part. I've been to 2 places in Exuma. I don't remember I thought it was Exuma, but I guess you're right.
There is a Great Exuma Island.
That's right. I've been there.
There's Great Exuma, and I think there's Little Exuma Island, but that's down by Georgetown, which it's interesting, but I find that closer to being in the Florida Keys than
it was very popular. I mean, it was barren, but yet populated. It was still very like resort or bust. We flew there. I think we went to a Sandals, and we were having such a good time. They had an opportunity where we could charter a plane through them, and they would fly us there for like a day trip. And I loved it. That water was
beautiful water.
The water was insane. Water. One of my top actually 3. But see, that's why Bimini's still my top when it comes to marine life, because I actually only went to Bimini because it's one of top 5 places in the world to swim with dolphins naturally. The spotted dolphin too, which they're the more curious out of the whole dolphin family. That's where I went, but it just came down to, oh God, like it was just, I don't mind spending money, especially on a vacation, but I was like, come on, like literally like $60 for like a case of water, stuff, absurd amount of money. Yeah. And like I said, if you don't have a boat and you're on land, which you're getting robbed that much more because you can't bring anything. And it was just I don't like that. I don't like getting, and I'm not saying that they were doing, and I know it's tough because it's a very small island, and I know everything's an import, but I'm not.
Yeah. Well, once you go, often to the point of where you're recognized by a number of people who live there, then they start taking you under the wing, right? And they say, well, you really don't have to do.
You don't need that $60 water,
right?
Yeah, I would. I know if I go back, I will try to go with someone. Most of all the vessels that are there, like in the marina, are all from Miami. They're just it's such an easy trip. Well, not easy, but 2-3 hours, and they're there, and they're on their 50+ beautiful boats, and they're just chilling on there, and they got everything they need. That's when I'd like to go back there, but it was tough. But I think I'm excited about Aruba. From what I hear, because that's my goal. Every time I go to these islands, I'm not just going to be straight vacation. I'm going there to see, because that's my dream, is to live somewhere else part of the year in a smaller, have something else, or rent it out. And I'm really excited because I hear they're actually going to be 100% independent on the energy wise by 2022, I think.
In Aruba?
Yep.
No. Nice.
They're supposed to be one of the cleaner. It's a desert island, which is tough because I've been to Curacao and those kind of places, and those are very desert-y, and I'm not a fan of that. That part, once you're off the once you're off the coast and you're inland, it's desert, and it's not very comfortable. It's quote. I do like some lush, but I really went for the water. And
well, if you get an opportunity to if you're checking islands, look at St. Lucia.
St. Lucia, haven't been.
My sister lives in St. Lucia. She's been there since the mid-90s, and she operates a bed and breakfast there, and she loves it. She really, she's been there since 1995 or something like that, so she must love it.
Does she get to, is it live on the property / maintain? She's like her grounds, and see, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And, quite naturally, it's like anything else. It's fantastic looking at it from a distance, but when you're mopping the floors and you're fixing the windows and all this other good stuff, it's
right. But she's been doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did she have always a passion? Like, I just can't kick this. It sounds so cliche, but like that beach. I mean, I have it here, but honestly, I'm already dreading once we're already headed for it. The season's changed, the water's changing, and I just want to be in the water when I'm not working or playing soccer. And it gets cold here for me. And that's my dream, is just to have that consistent. And like I said, the grass is always greener. I'm not saying my happiness relies in another location, but it would be nice to. I'm sure she's got. I'm excluding the woebegones of just life. She's got to probably have. Is that what called her out there? Like that feeling of just I want the beach.
Well, when we were young, we were only 18 months apart when we were growing. And when we were growing up, she always talked about, I want to go to the Caribbean. I want to go to the Caribbean. So Lorraine, we all do that kind of a thing.
Right.
And then as we got older and start getting out into the world, she moved several times to a number of different places. She lived up in Seattle, and San Francisco, and twice back and forth to Atlanta. And by that time I was in Atlanta. And one day I was sitting in my office at my house in Atlanta, and she comes in and she throws this business plan on my desk. And I leaf through this thing, and it's really interesting, about building this bed and breakfast on this island of St. Lucia, which I hadn't heard of. And I said, wow, Lorraine, where did you get this? She said, I wrote it. I said, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. And then as I looked at it, I started seeing, little personality things about her that I'm saying, well, yeah, I guess you did. And sure enough, that I don't remember what year that was. It was in the early 90s, but 1995, the day after Thanksgiving, 1995, she took off. Right.
Good for her. She
took off and looked back.
She built it?
She didn't build it. No, she at that time she was leasing a house near the capital of Castries, Cap Estates or whatever in St. Lucia. And beautiful place. Beautiful. Went down there the following year, and it was just
it's got to be it's typical
what you would, right. It was what you Gorgeous. Would imagine. It was exactly what and I could not believe that this was my sister with, I grew up down the hall from her messy room and, all of the, all of the blemishes that you see in your sister. And she had this beautiful, beautiful hospitality industry going,
I'm going to have to go check this out.
Yeah. So and she's moved twice. Well, actually, 3 times now, because she just moved in September to another place that's up on it's up on some type of a hill or a mountain or whatever, because she sends pictures of beautiful, the beautiful vistas of.
Is it a bed and breakfast, or does she? Yeah, really. She's smart. Wherever she goes, she keeps some kind of income opportunity.
Right. Well, I think Airbnb has been her friend.
I can imagine.
She says that she likes the clientele that she gets from Airbnb over any other outlet that where people sign up for.
I'm hearing that. I'm a huge avid Airbnb dude. I've used it internationally more than even in the States.
Yeah.
Never. The only problem I actually ever had, ironically, was in Orlando. Never, wherever we've gone, all over the place, we use Airbnb. It's what we want. Of course, there may be a quirk here and there, but we've gone to places before and like the TV doesn't work. And I'm like, I don't even care about the stupid. I'm not here for the TV, but I'm sure if they were nitpickers. But literally, Orlando was the only one I ever went to that it was like stuff that actually mattered, because I brought my whole family. I have a soccer tournament out there as well. And this particular time, my family came, and I had my grandparents and stuff. So like, if it says it has a couch in the living room, we needed a couch in the living room, and like stuff like that wasn't there. But I've heard nothing but fantastic stories of those that are using it for means of renting out their properties as well. What a fantastic business model. It's one of those I go, why did I not?
I had toyed with the idea. When we decided to, even before we sold Shibumi, when we decided we were going to put her on the market, we said, well, all right, what's the next phase in life then? And so we start talking in terms of, we'll travel and maybe we'll rent from Airbnb,
rent your house out.
Well, that came later. We started thinking, well, maybe we'll rent our house out, but we knew that we'd have to go through a whole lot of filtering in order to do that, because years of accumulation of stuff and all. But we kind of felt like we'd like to be able to, and still it's kind of something we want to put on the chart. Like rent through Airbnb.
You haven't used it yet?
Not exclusive. I only use it twice.
Oh, okay, okay.
But we want to be able to use it and stay someplace for 3 weeks to a month.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times you go into a city and you really don't know the city,
Right, you
because
don't.
you're in and out in 2 or 3 days, and you really,
Right.
you know, you see the touristy stuff.
Well, this
But
is
when
probably
you live
really
there for a while, you know, you really
got to get a feel, and
Right.
you know, well, I'm sure Airbnb, if they ever listen to this, would hate me for saying this, but what I do is you do that one stay, get to know the owner,
Mm-hmm.
and you're good.
You're right.
And I did that. I met somebody via one of those sites and met the owners, and I've done it in 2 places, Jamaica and Puerto Rico. I would go, and after the first time or two, because they want to make sure, you know, I didn't say anything in the original reservation or anything, but you went, and I almost moved to Puerto Rico. That was another one. I went to a place called Fardo, and I loved it. I almost moved there, but once again, hurricane, you know what I mean? I'm like, what am I going to, I'm going to leave here to go. If one does come, it's going to be some kind of ruckus. But I went to this guy, and it's just one-on-one, and he gives me what it would normally cost with, you know, Airbnb going in his pockets. But it's been that's the best way, because then you're not dealing with you even get better pricing, and then they, you know, just, you know this better than I do, Cap. You go somewhere, and most of the time, once you leave the state-based mentality, people are such lovers. And that was something Elon Musk was talking about, that like out of 390 something thousand people, like 3 of them are horrible. You know what I mean? Like statistically bad, because they're a felon or something. Like that's the ratio. The number is something so minute, and it's right. It's like, how many people today was your life threatened? You know, like, and that's what's funny is like the minute you get out of this, like, and it doesn't necessarily happen when you're in person, but we go online and it's like everyone wants to kill each other. Everyone's racist. Everyone's this. And
well,
it's
you know,
like,
it's the thing of where I was in a discussion with some people over in Paris, and they were talking about the what they saw as the personality of the average American. It kind of felt like we were afraid of everything. That was our personality. We were fearful, you know. And I had to think about it, and I said, well, you know, you're right. We are programmed to be afraid of everything, you know, and that's our approach to the world.
I've never heard it in those terms, but you're right.
You go in other places and you find that for the most part, citizens of other parts of the world, they are not afraid of everything. You know,
it's so funny because now you're making me remember even things like when when I was living in Costa Rica. I used to live in Costa Rica for about 1.5 to 2 years, and people would come visit. And that was my first experience really living in a culture that wasn't, let's just say, as like hypos as we are with the cleanliness and this and that. And that scare factor, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not even, it's so embedded in us as a culture in the States that it's not just, we're not just afraid and scared of different. We're also afraid of like, oh, wait a minute, you can't put the meat on the same chopping board that you put the onions on. And you can, and you're not going to die.
No.
And, you know, build some antibodies up and you'll be all right. And it's funny, I have a really good friend of mine who is Peruvian. And when he comes over to cook he loves to cook. He'll come over and he'll cook and you're hanging out. If there's people here that aren't accustomed to like, he's the kind of, and it's an experience with him. It's not just like he's in the corner. He's he's cutting in front of you and he's showing you. But he's one of these guys that comes on these soccer tournaments with me. And there's always a couple of people. And they're like, you can't, and he does that, you know, he's got the meat and then he do that and then he puts the onion. It's like people are like, oh no, like you know, we were so programmed that like you got to wear your gloves for this or that. But it's true. It's so, I don't know, but I'm hoping, I think, you know, so like Elon Musk, I keep bringing him up because I was so touched by that. Rogan closes his podcast with like, what do you want to tell the millions of people that are literally watching this? And he's like, one thing that was fascinating, and I pray for this every day, like quick with my mind, slow with my tongue, and it doesn't, I'm nowhere near that expertise yet, but he does. Like any question Joe would ask him, it's like an obnoxiously long 5 seconds, which if you're not watching it, you would think your internet froze because Joe's like, yo, so what's going on? And it's just, you're like, what's going, what? Oh, and he's just sitting there and he's just thinking.
Yeah. Thinks about it before
he would respond. And he closed with just love people. But he wasn't being like flamboyant about it, like love everybody and like, you know, wearing a shirt. Like it was just love, man. Like, honestly, who's out there really trying to kill you? Like, yes, are they out there? 100%. Are they next door to you? The likelihood is very slim.
Slow.
Figuratively and literally. And it's like love and just, I don't know. That's why this is probably the biggest, like the is why I'm doing this, is just I love this. Like, I love people. If people just stopped for a minute, and that's why I think podcasts are like blowing up. Everyone, it's so funny how many people I've had, they're like, bro, I was thinking about doing a podcast. Like, it's such a good idea. And I'm like, well, I only didn't because I thought it needed to be bigger and better and not my living room. And I needed a studio, and you see what I have. It's easy. I thought to myself, just do it.
Well, you're perfect for it. I mean, you are perfect for it because your worldview is very wide angle. You have very well versed in a lot of different subjects, and you like people.
I do.
So it's perfect for you.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, because coming from you, that I mean that sincerely. Like I said, when I had a stem cell, he's coming. I have a stem cell doctor coming on the show, and I'm trying to keep the content nature coming out. But you're just as valuable because of your life experiences. And I've talked about you so much to even my grandfather and my grandmother. They're so dear to me. And I see my grandfather every week religiously, but I talk to him literally on a daily basis, if not hourly, because we watch a lot of soccer. And he comes to my soccer games. There's a game tonight. And I've unfortunately I had to push it off to the side, the living on a sailboat, because I just know that I can't. And it's tough for me because I know nothing's impossible. I could, but it's just not practical because I really can't. I can't tinker.
Well, I came up with this whole concept of the fact that I wanted to live on a sailboat in 1977. And I didn't get a boat until 2002.
See, so. And that made me feel good when you did share that with me. Yeah, I remember because I think we're in that. I'm guilty as charged. I guess I'm a millennial, but I am programmed to think a little bit like, I want that. I'm going to get it. Like, I'll just put it on a credit card. And that's not how I was approaching this. This was, can I do this? Can I protect my wife? Can I really? And I know that I'm not ready yet. Yeah. I'm really not. I know in my heart that I'm not. And it's not even just a money thing. It really came down to, I'm not. And I'm going to do it the right way. I still have all my notes. I can't wait to go to the school and do it the right way. And then, of course, what I'm going to do, and I can't wait to do it, is begin to start to surround myself by 10 of you. That, and like you have taught me, like, start hanging around the marinas and go and learn, and because it's definitely
talk to people, right. And you're doing, like you said, you're doing it right, because there's a season for everything, and you recognize this is not your season right now, right? This is not it, and I had to go through a number of seasons before I kind of realized, all right, I'm ready, So
it's pretty surreal though that you did it, and now she's on to the next.
Yeah,
Shibumi's
that is surreal. And yeah, I mentioned this to a number of people. I think I even mentioned it to you when we met over at Entrepreneur.
You said something to me, and I'm really guilty as charged. It was a compound. It was a two words.
Psycho-cybernetics.
Psycho-cybernetics.
It's a book.
Oh, it's an actual book.
It is a book. It was written probably in the 70s, but it's a science that I guess the guy was a plastic surgeon that he came up with.
That's what you were telling me.
And for the most part, any major thing that's reasonable that you put in your subconscious mind, that your subconscious mind is not going to let go of it. And once it becomes real to your subconscious mind, you're going to achieve it. So you got to be careful about what you come up with. Some people come up with some pretty cynical stuff that
right.
Gets them in trouble. But for the most part, if you have a dream, a long-term dream, like I didn't realize during a period of time it was like 25 years from 1977 to 2002, that dream was just germinating in the back of my head while I was doing other things, not even consciously thinking about it.
Right.
But one step at a time, slowly but surely, it was leading me toward that dream, and that's basically that psycho-cybernetics.
I love it. That's what I remember. You were the first one I walked in, and boom, you're right there. And your fine friend over there to your right.
Yeah, Carl.
Yeah. But yeah, psycho-cybernetics. I remember you blowing my mind, as usual, in a good way. I remember going, "What this? This is what I want to talk about."
Well,
If I'm
and you know, we wasted all of this great podcast and whatnot talking about aviation and all this other good stuff. Hopefully, folks will get something out of that. But no, but that is a science that I have found over a period of time. If you look back on your own life and think about all of the things when you were younger that you wanted to do, and then maybe you put them aside. Now you look back and you realize I did all of those things.
Yeah.
You know, those things did fall into place. Some of them may be still coming, but those things fall into place. So in the book Psycho-Cybernetics, the doctor was Maxwell Maltz, I believe is what his name was. And he said that if you can actually envision what you want and do it in color, and envision texture and color and size and shape and all of that, it'll come quicker. But once your subconscious mind starts wrapping itself around a goal, you're gonna get there.
So I never knew how to put it in such a beautiful term, but I'm a firm believer in that. If it's a belief, I know it's a fact. It literally, I'll never forget. It's funny because we didn't get to talk like this as much as we did now about it. But when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher, but I never went to school. I went to DBCC for 2 years, but it was almost kind of like go. Like I wasn't passionate about it. I met wonderful people, thank God, that I'm still friends with now, but I didn't care about the scholastics at all. And I have my own regrets with that because I feel like but my point is I always wanted to be a teacher. I was young. That's what I would tell people. Like, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher. Well, I got to teach, but I never knew it would happen by means of being in a third world country without the diploma and without that, because what mattered the most was what I was teaching was involuntary. It was English. And I got to teach, and it put so many things in perspective because I actually wanted to. I did it, and it taught me that I didn't want to. By the time I was there, I knew that I wasn't something that I would want to do forever, but I got to do it.
Well, I mean, look at what you're doing now.
Right.
For the most part, with your podcasts, on a number of levels, you're teaching. It's just on the,
I guess you're right.
It's a different format, different forum, but you're teaching. So that subconsciously,
you're right.
The reason that you wanted to teach is being manifested now.
Man.
It's a thing of, but it doesn't always show up like a chalkboard.
It doesn't.
A chalkboard in the classroom.
It never does.
Right.
Well, no, not just that, but it never happens. Like you said, that's actually not only like I've used that since I read it. It's a biblical thing. Life seasons. I love that because it truly is. And that's one of those things that I was talking about earlier was I wish. And I say wish because this is just my own, once again, I'm going to use the word naive because I wasn't exposing myself as much as I guess it comes with age, but I didn't realize that life isn't going to always be great. Like life is good and bad. And I feel like that's probably what's taught me to be like, I try to do more fighting when things are well than just waiting for things when to go bad. Like I'll never forget when I first went independent and I had my first 2 clients, and then like I wanted to get there was a part of me that wanted to go cruise control for a minute, like, oh, I'm just gonna take this day off. I got clients. And I thank God I was like, no, this is when I'm gonna actually go. You can use all the cool little acronyms you want, but R&D or research, whatever. That's when I would go like, wait a minute, I got some time to kill. I should probably invent a new promo, a new idea, a new concept.
Invest that time back into the business. Right.
And thank God I've always stayed that way. Now, one thing I've always dealt with too, though, Cap, is I just recently sat down with a friend of mine. I say recently in the last year or two, so I don't see him very often. He's a 10-year vet and is a Navy SEAL. And man, what I've learned from him just over a beer, just the things that he's seen. It doesn't even like tell me anything. I just watch his mannerisms. And I remember telling him one day with me, he would come to visit. And I'd be like, dude, I feel like a failure every day. Not in a bad, but just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I still can't believe I've been doing this 10 plus years and I feel like a failure. And it's like, he's so nonchalant about it. He's like, bro, imposter syndrome. You don't know what that means? And I'm like, wait, of course that's my buddy. Like says something that has like 10 years of research I had no clue about because I wasn't classically gifted. So I'm like, imposter syndrome, writing it down, go home, and I'm like, wow, like really, this is a real thing. And I don't know if I was like, that's exactly what it was, because I still like, I just want to always become, and it's not just financially. So like, I want a bigger client or bigger job, but I would feel this like, am I going to be able to do this tomorrow? Why are these people paying me to do this? I don't even feel like they should, you know what I mean? And I learned that imposter syndrome, and that's a big hurdle. Once you start to implement these life attributes, psycho-cybernetics, then there's that
powerful. It's very, very powerful. I'm glad that I tripped across it when I did, the age that was, because I guess I must have run across that when I was about 30.
So you were kind of getting ready, because no disrespect to a 20-year-old, but if you would have told me when I was 20, I'd been like, I don't.
Yeah. And, and at the time that I read it, I was more or less kind of floundering around. That was not long after I started working for the FAA. And I was still had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do other things. And that, this air traffic control job was going to be a temporary job. And then I read the Psycho-Cybernetics, and I kind of realized then that I really didn't know what I wanted. What this author was saying was, you put your goal in your mind and you add color and texture and everything to it. And I realized, all right, if I got the color and the texture and all of this, but I don't have a real goal.
What is it?
What is it? What is the, what is this? And so that, that kind of started shaping, shaping where I was going from there. I started realizing, all right, I can't just keep floundering around out here with no destination, so.
But it starts here.
Yes.
And that's what I do remember telling you while we were there, that I'm learning now at my 30 nothings and how precious and sensitive and life is and fragile we are, that it starts here, man. And you know that, but I got a lot of people that are near around my age and younger than me, and they want to think about, I get the majority of what they think about is what's eating them alive, literally.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, I mean, we can go, that's a whole nother tangent, but I mean, we're just covering stuff up with other things. There's a pill for it. There's a book for it. There's a this for it. When it's like, except when I'm like, my saddest parts of my life, excluding deaths and excluding things that I can't control, are when I'm hurt physically because I can't play soccer. That's my biggest hardships. I'll never, like, the few injuries that I've had, thank God, that have been detrimental to my play, whether it's a rolled ankle or something where I know that I can't play now for a period of time. Even if I wanted to, I have to wait. Those periods, I try to make sure that I've learned this from a holistic doctor outlook here in town too. His name's Adam Lamnouni, Dr. Lamnouni here. Great guy. He's going to be coming on the show too. But he not only taught me how to live better physically with the walk. It's another thing, just a simple walk a day, all these other things. But I would worry so much, like that hypochondriac, like, oh, is it going to get any better? Like you keep tonguing that sore and you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it's like, I really am a firm believer in that it's not only just goal driven, but I think it can be, would you agree? It's even like health driven, like,
yes,
I'm hurt right now, but I'm going to get better. I know.
That's what you want to focus on, is the improvement, not the, not the ailment, not yesterday. I hear it all the time, and people kind of laugh at you are what you think. And that's no joke.
It's true.
What you put in your mind is who you are. Your diet is a lot more than what you eat and what you drink. It has to do with who you associate with. Who you listen to, what you tell yourself, what music you turn on. That's all part of your diet.
Yep.
And I've come to find out over the years, and I know so far I'm the oldest that you've had on. I guess I'm the eldest statesman.
I think you win that.
Probably the eldest statement. Probably will be, based on the demographics of the area here. Probably will be for the longest time. But I've found over the decades that I manifest my own world around me. You know, the things that I think about, the things that I observe, the things that I want, basically are what's going to come to me.
So powerful.
You know, maybe, and sometimes I think, well, I'm not thinking high enough. You know, I'm not bringing in, and basically, I don't want to bring in. There was a period of time when I was fairly well off. You know, I had this little general contracting firm where we had, I built 27 single family houses, and we were doing pretty well. I had a lot of money, and I had a lot of misery, because all of the stuff that I was putting in my mind was all of the negative things that could happen. And quite naturally, since I focused on that, a lot of those negative things did happen.
Really?
Yeah. And
I believe this, but this is, I mean, I believe this, like you really did. Like it started, your woebegons became reality.
Right. I focused on the obstacles and wind up tripping over them.
Wow.
You know, that kind of a thing. So, you know, over the years, I started realizing I have to be very, very careful in terms of, well, what do I think? You know, what am I feeding my subconscious mind?
Right.
And, you know, when am I going to sleep at night, you know, leaving as a seed there to grow in the morning, you know? So to me, psycho-cybernetics is more than real. It's just that's just the fact of life, you know?
It's funny because I've failed at that more than I've succeeded at it, because everyone has their own rhythm of how they escape that. One of my biggest escapes were relying on a higher being, for me anyways, and I would always feel literally like a failure. I know it sounds so stupid coming probably to people that know, like, but most people have no idea how much I feel like everything that I'm doing is so stupid, ultimately, in layman terms. And I remember that it's only been a handful of years, Captain, that I'm finally realizing that you got it. And it wasn't until I had my first tragic death in my friend group that he used to tell me, I'll never forget, when I went independent, he would call me every morning because he was working for a really awesome architectural firm. And I'll never forget, he would want the world to know it was fantastic. He was the first black man to do 3D rendering for the city, the hall, the pay passes or whatever they call them, the things you go, the tolls. And I was shaking my hand at him whenever I'd go through. I'm like, thanks, Matt. But he was one of the first right out of University of Florida, gets this job. But my point is, he was fascinated with getting to work on your own. Now, this was so long ago now, but I was doing it. Here he is, right? The grass is green. I'm like, dude, you're working for the coolest job to me anyway. I mean, you're working. I'd go visit him. It was like a high rise in Orlando, the whole thing. You know, the cool desks. You had everything. I'd go visit him, and then of course, this is my job. You know, but he would call me every morning, Cap, and be like, "How's it feel?" I'm like, Matt, what are you talking about? How's it feel? So what do you want? I'm sitting in my underwear. Like my life was so bare bones. I'm literally like in my underwear, waking up on a Monday, and he was like so fascinated with mine.
And your grass was greener to him, and his grass was greener to you.
But I'll never forget, he would not teach me, but of course now I look back on it, he was teaching me. When we would hang out, I would be like, dude, I need a better this. I need to be bigger. I need to do this. And he's like, bro, at some point you're going to need to stamp yourself successful, or you're just an idiot, like literally just verbatim. And I'm like, well, bro, I don't have anything. I mean, at that time I had a handful of clients, and I'm not retaining them all. I don't really know. Once again, how am I monetizing the whole, you turn, it's not as bad as it was back then, but now you turn on, you got your Gary V's, you got all these guys blowing up, and you're like, what am I doing? But I'll never forget. He's like, bro, you have to, you paying your bills? Yes. You healthy? Yes. You got a girl? Yes. Shut up. Boom. And it's like flip the page and move on. And I wasn't always good at that. I'm starting to get to a point now where I'm going to make it. Like and it's tough because I'm sure the outside in looks at me and they're probably like, oh yeah, Chenzo thinks he's the best or whatever, because I have to do the branding and I got to have this. But I never wake up in the morning. I'm like, I got this. I don't. I feel like it's actually detrimental to getting it. But I am learning also that as long as I stay humble And it's like, as I believe, like I think that goes in parallel though. You got to, right? You can't just wake up and be like, got it. You heard of like FU money kind of people like that. I'm like, no matter how successful I get.
Well, the thing is, I believe is that, what we've said before is what you put in your mind. The stories that you tell yourself about yourself, that determines the richness of your life.
That's so powerful.
Well, I know a number of people, myself included, over the years, who tell themselves such a poor story about themselves. That everything, and you were trying to go down that road a little bit. We were saying,
right,
well, I don't feel like I really live up to this. Well, that's not the story to tell yourself.
Right.
The way I look at it is the story that I like to tell myself is all of those obstacles that I tripped over and finally picked myself up and got over and, went on. That is making my story even richer, and I'm looking forward to now. Here, I'm 71 years old, and I'm still looking forward to the future. I figured I haven't done my best project yet.
I love it.
And that's the story that I keep telling myself, and I know that's what's going to happen.
Well, I'm getting it now. I'm slow. Like I said, and my wife is a big supporter of that. Where even if I'm low, or I may have my pitch play out on the field, like tonight is if I come home and I didn't win tonight, I'll get mad. Not like anger, not like throwing anything, just like may feel like maybe it's my time, because I'm 34 now, and in a soccer world, I'm ancient, on the pitch, and I know that my time. So I'm trying to keep my athleticism high, but I've learned that you're 100%. It's not just the money, it's not just your employment, it's your health, it's your marriage, it's everything. And it's so funny because I guess a lot of people are preaching it online, like, all these retreats and all this, and it's always most of them are, you got to buy something, you got to do something, you got to attend somewhere, and it's all right here. And I'm slowly, like I said, on a scale from 0 to 10, I'm still haven't even probably crossed a 5, but at least I know that I got to just keep, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be all right.
Well, we touched on it. We were talking about riding around in airplanes with people. Attitude is everything. There was a sailing magazine. I can't even remember what the name of it was, but their logo was the difference between an ordeal and an adventure is attitude.
So yeah, it's true,
and it is very true, because I remember being in some pretty nasty weather when we were in Anchorage, and
on Shibumi.
On Shibumi, yeah, and we were anchored, and the weather was pretty nasty, and boats were being fishtailed all around on their anchor chains and all of this good stuff. And I can hear people on the radio; they're just almost panicking, and I'm thinking, attitude. You change your attitude, and this ordeal will be an adventure.
It's true. It starts there.
Yeah.
Well, that's man. This has been great.
Yeah,
we can.
Oh yeah. Well,
I think we run out of
digits.
No, we did. That's perfect though. We just hit it. I don't even know how long it was, but at least I got it.
Well,
this is still going, but we'll end.
Well, hopefully people got something out of this. I have no idea what they could have possibly got out of this.
I think